Hello guys, and welcome to my top Let's Plays or top playthroughs or whatever you want to call it, top games that I played throughout all of 2023. Now this does not include the games that are coming out like in December and right before the next year. I'm recording this right now as soon as it's the 1st of December, so that's why I'm not counting those, and I want to get this video done because I always enjoy kind of summing up my year of playing games. I haven't really done this before, but like off screen I've kind of like tried to like think back on games and stuff like that. So I would like to do so on screen and of course judge them based on what I think are the best like games of the year that I have played. Now it is important to note that I did not spend hours and hours making this list here. So you can argue against and for the actual games that I end up picking in the end. But overall, I'm gonna try to explain why I pick the games I do, and hopefully you can tell me why you agree or why you disagree in the comment section. Now, hopefully I've explained myself properly enough that this is my personal preference, okay? And this is not overall how gaming is. This is just what I think about these different games and where I think they belong. And I'll also need to mention that some of them are very like on the edge of what they are. Like as an example, down in horror games, I have put like Stalker, Shadow of Chernobyl down there. When in all honesty, it's not a horror game. I guess you can call it like a survival horror-ish. But like, I am kind of bending the rules a little bit, to kind of make sure that when it comes to RPG, like as long as they have elements that fit that theme, then I will go ahead and nominate them as that throughout the year. So yeah, don't scream at me about that. I already know that. So yeah, let's go ahead and actually talk about the games and what games I've nominated for what. So I of course have best games played, best co-op games, best music, best audio design, best narrative, best shooter, best indie game, best horror game, best RPG, best art direction, best action game, best family game, best strategy sim game, and so on and so forth. I'm not gonna name all of them right now. It's probably already annoying. So anyway, those are the kind of themes and kind of awards, I guess you can say that I'm gonna give these games. So let's start with best game played. So throughout the whole year of 2023, I've been playing all these games, of course, and all of these games stood out to me as the ones I enjoyed the most. Now, you can argue that, oh, you didn't enjoy the other games a lot. I enjoyed those games too. It's just, these games are really games I look back on fondly throughout the year, and I really appreciate these games for what they kind of told me. Now, the one that actually affects me the least is probably Cold War. It's not really a game I look back on very fondly, but the other games I do. Like, I had fun playing through the other 4 games here. So you can probably already tell that Cold War is gonna be out. Like, Cold War is satisfying to play, but there's nothing about it that really makes it stand out among all of these other games. Like, its narrative is a bit its gameplay is very good. Nothing too crazy about that game, so I'm just gonna go ahead and pull that out of there right immediately. On the last game standing is gonna be the one that kind of gets awarded, just so you guys are aware. I'm gonna try to compare the games, see which ones kind of stand out the most to me and which ones I really like the elements in. Of course, based on the category, and then we'll see what happens from there. So anyway, we are now at Wolfenstein 2. Does that really deserve to say? I mean, I really enjoyed the game. The gameplay in the game is super fun. I actually enjoyed the gameplay the most in the whole game. The narrative is badass. Not the best narrative I've ever seen, but like it's pretty decent when it comes to being a narrative. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and pull that down as well. Like it is pretty good, but it's not like, and just these are not in order. Just so you're aware, none of these are in order. So, Wolfenstein 2, while it is a nominee of all of the games I played this year, out of being the best game, it, let's just say that it does not stand up to the other games. It was fun, it was enjoyable, I would recommend the game. Gameplay is satisfying and cool, kind of has some RPG elements actually, like the level up system, the perks and stuff. But not enough to really qualify it as an RPG, and also not enough to kind of make it how do you say it? It just does not stand on its own well enough against these other 3 titans up here. Let's just say it like that. Next game is Metro Exodus. Now, Metro Exodus left a big impression on me when I played it, both visually and narratively, and also how you play the game. So that one's gonna stay for now. Because I'm thinking this might be my best game played. I know you can argue against me about the other 2, but let me talk about the other 2 before you kind of yell at me in the comment section here. So, Dark Souls 3. A game I really enjoyed too. It's an RPG set in a dark fantasy world, of course. And it is, dare I say, the most fair game I played. Now, it's gonna be weird to hear that this game is fair, but I actually don't think the game is hard. I actually think it's pretty easy. I'm currently uploading the Let's Play on my channel as of this time. I have completed the game. I'm just uploading it at this time. And I will say I enjoyed it a lot. So I think that one is also gonna stay here. Now, I also recently played Devil May Cry 5. Now, while Devil May Cry 5 probably has the best and most satisfying melee combat in the way it uses combos and the different abilities you have and stuff like that, you would have to play to really understand, in all honesty. It is a super fun game. It's probably the most fun game out of all of these games. If I would value fun over everything else, I think Devil May Cry 5 will probably be taking the #1 spot. But since it is mostly fun and all the other elements in the game are kind of below that, I will actually go ahead and put this down here as well. So it's not gonna be my best gameplay. So we stand between Dark Souls 3 and Metro Exodus. Now, both of them are completely different in genre. Like, Dark Souls 3 is pretty dang good at being just a fair game where enemies have little health, you have little health, you can upgrade your weapons, you fight enemies with different movesets. It's the kind of game where you are really just kind of put on the spot with how you tackle opponents. Like, it urges you to learn from your opponents and try to make use of their weaknesses. Where Metro Exodus is more about the narrative and more about shooting monsters throughout an irradiated wasteland. After nukes dropped in Russia. Now, I will say Metro Exodus will win for me, because while Dark Souls 3 is enjoyable and fun, I am more personally into lore about like a nuke dropping on the country, and then how they got into the metros, and then how people survives that way, and how the story progresses. Now, you can argue that Dark Souls 3 does have a story you have to investigate in the surroundings and stuff like that. But ultimately, Dark Souls 3 is more gameplay, where Metro Exodus is a bit more story and gameplay, kind of whenever it wants you to be gameplay, and then it just wants you to go on a journey. As this character you're given to play as, Artyom, and then you go through a lot of events and other things that determine the end, where you have 2 endings. I just don't see any game that can top that. Now, it might be cheating a little bit, because I don't think I actually played the full Metro Exodus campaign this year. I think I started some of it last year, then I played the DLCs this year. But I'm not quite sure, so don't quote me on that. But I am going to use it as the game this year, because I do think it deserves it. Now, Dark Souls 3, I did enjoy it. Okay, these 2 are pretty close to games played this year. But Metro Exodus just has so much more in it. Again, if I was all about gameplay, I think Dark Souls 3 would win. But because Metro Exodus has everything in one package, and pretty much almost packaged up exactly as I want it, this might even be my favorite shooter, just so you're aware, in all of gaming in total. So, Dark Souls 3, let's just put that down here. Now, I'm not going to talk as much about the other games, because this is probably the most important one. But let's go with best co-op game. So best co-op game is one. All of these games thingies, by the way, on my channel. All of these are based on videos I've made already. So if any of them kind of catch your eye, you can go ahead and check the actual Let's Play. But with that being said, I played this game with Hero, Harry Potter. I played this with Hero and Hugo. I played Borderlands 3 with Hero and Hugo. I played Surgeon Simulator with Hero and Hugo. And with Hero, I played Ultimate Chicken Horse. Because you're aware about the player count and stuff. So let's start with Harry Potter this time around. Why not? Lego Harry Potter is a fun co-op game that you can play locally. It does not support online play. So you have to use a different program like Parsec in order to play it. And while it is fun, it lacks a bit of action. It's a Lego game where you go around learning spells because, you know, Harry Potter universe, you use wands and spells and stuff. There's not much cooperative in it. You can do everything solo. You're not really dependent on your friends. It's more about having fun and kind of about sort of going through the story of Harry Potter together. And I don't feel like it adds too much to the co-op experience, but it is fun to play with your friends or your friend, depending on if you want to swap controller or whatever. So we have a best co-op game, which is 0 Hour here too, and then we have Borderlands 3, Surgeon Simulator 2, and Ultimate Chicken Horse. So let's start with 0 Hour. 0 Hour is probably the most strategic and most co-op necessary game on here. If you play this game is hard, by the way. 0 Hour is a pretty hard tactical shooter where you pretty much go in and kill terrorists and save people and defuse bombs. A lot like Ready or Not, if you haven't seen that one. I have not played Ready or Not yet, by the way. But it's very similar to Ready or Not. It's just this one seems a bit more hardcore, a little bit more tactical than Ready or Not does. So I'll save the ones for later since it is co-op dependent. Then, of course, we have Borderlands 3. Which is just more co-op fun than anything else, I'd say. Borderlands 3 is not necessarily hard or tough or anything. It just gives you a big playground to mess around with your friends, with characters that have special abilities. That's what's unique about Borderlands 3 and why I enjoy it personally. Then we have Surgeon Simulator 2. Surgeon Simulator 2 is... Ooh, let's see. Maybe I should actually remove them later. I'm going to do that from now on. Just so you guys don't get the hint of which one is gonna win. But then we have Surgeon Simulator 2. Surgeon Simulator 2 is a lot of messing around, although it's messing around in a limited fashion. So that is kind of at the bottom, I think, of all of these. And Ultimate Chicken Horse is just you screwing over your friends and messing with them and winning over them in competitive matches and stuff like that, which is... It is fun. But I'm not really much of a competitive player myself. But it's important to note that it is fun. Like, it is very fun to mess with your friends in Ultimate Chicken Horse. So I'll put this one down here. And, of course, I'll put Surgeon Simulator down here. And which one of these two do you think I'm going to pick here? Well, if you pick Borderlands 3, then you're right. While 0 Hour is a great co-op game in the sense that you have to rely on your friends and you have to work together, Borderlands 3 just offers a lot of fun for you and your friends to mess around and shoot things and get new weapons and upgrade and everything. 0 Hour is more of a tactical one where you have to work with your friends, where co-op is more you can mess around with your friends, like when it comes to Borderlands 3 anyway. So that's why it is the one game I picked as best co-op game that I played this year. So what about best music? Oh boy. This one was actually very tough to think of. Because on one hand, you have cool action music in Devil May Cry 5, I think some low-key rock or something in the game. Then you have Unity, which kind of has the setting, same thing with Origins. You have a Hogwarts Legacy, which sells the scale of the Harry Potter universe. And then, of course, you have Dark Souls 3, which sells the epicness of boss battles. And, of course, outside of boss battle 2, I think they have music, don't they? I don't remember if it has music outside of boss battles, but I think it does. So, what do I value most out of all of these? Well, combat music, as nice as it is, I will actually have to make it go away here. When it comes to combat music, it's just not my priority. So, Devil May Cry 5 is not gonna go get the Setchmo Award. What about Hogwarts Legacy? I'm gonna go ahead and put them down. I'm not gonna talk too much about which ones I pick. I'll just say why I picked the one I picked. And of course, it goes to Dark Souls 3. Now, why does it go to Dark Souls 3? Well, each boss, I'm pretty sure, has their own musical thing. So every single time you think of the boss, you're going to associate it with music that fits their character. Now, when it comes to video games and music, I actually, if Assassin's Creed 2 was here, I would actually have given it to that, just so you're aware. But when it comes to Dark Souls 3, I don't think a lot of games beats its orchestra kind of music that fits the theme and the overall dark universe it's set in. It's just, they're just great. Like, if you hear Dark Souls music, you can hear a lot of emotion, you can hear a lot of character, I guess you can say, a lot of like dark themes, sadness, just a lot of emotion. Like, and that's what music ultimately portrays. It portrays emotion, and it shares that emotion with the person listening. And I think Dark Souls 3 does the best out of all of them. It really has great music in it. Now, on to something else. What about audio design? Now, we're not just talking music. We're talking hit sounds. We're talking ambient noise. We're talking just all the music in the game. And that's the reason why Dark Souls 3 is not here. While it has a great soundtrack when it comes to actual music, its audio, in my opinion, is very basic. It doesn't have too much like specific audio stuff, and they reuse all the audio from the older games, which is fine. But it does not give you the list on, or a place on my list when you do that kind of stuff. And then we have Cold War here, of course, but you know. The best audio design. We have Cold War, with its very punchy and strong gun sounds, and its nice characters, voices, or whatever you want to call it, and it just kind of fits all the situations they bring at it. Origins, which has a cool soundtrack, it has cool sounds that fit the desert, it has specific sound cues, all that kind of good stuff. Metro Exodus is very close to Cold War, actually. They kind of both have the same thing going on. Borderlands 3 has a cool Western feel to the audio. It also kind of it have a lot of guns that sound unique and stuff like that. 0 Hour is just kind of realistic. Like, I don't know how else to say it. 0 Hour tries to be super loud with guns, and it's hard to explain. It's just realistic. It tries to be as realistic as possible. It uses audio cues to figure out where the enemies are, stuff like that. So of course I'm gonna give the victory to 0 Hour. Because in my opinion, what I want most in a game that uses that has audio, or that I consider having good audio, is when the audio adds to the gameplay in some way or another. Like, as an example, if you shoot in a lot of games, of course the enemies notice you. But are there a lot of games where the enemies communicate when they're silent, and then they make sounds, or you can hear them walking around, and then you can discover their locations? A lot of games don't allow you to do that, first and foremost, and a lot of games, even if they have that mechanic, usually enter combat before you can sneak around and do it. So I'm gonna go ahead and give that to 0 Hour, because the audio is part of the gameplay in that game, and that's why I think it kind of deserves it. Best narrative. Well, now we're talking about the actual narrative that drives the game. Or if it drives the game. But the games I picked, the narrative kind of drives the game to a certain aspect. Of course, not all of them. These are just the games I played. So of course, these are not the top games of all time that, you know, have the best narrative. But out of all the games I played in 2023, which ones do I think have the best narrative? So, Devil May Cry 5, its narrative is pretty straightforward. You get... Actually, I can't really spoil it in case you don't want to get spoiled, but let's just say you have trouble. You have a lot of trouble, and then you try again later because the trouble you had trouble with didn't get fixed. And you keep trying to fix the thing that stopped you from fixing the trouble, and you come across a lot of things along the way. You know, you really get to grow with the characters as they do things. That's why this is here. Hogwarts Legacy, Its narrative is actually kind of weak in my opinion, but again, like I picked 5 nominees for the whole category, so I thought Hogwarts Legacy might as well be on here because it has a pretty strong narrative compared to all other games in the list. So Hogwarts Legacy, of course, I mean it's pretty decent all around. Like it's not the best narrative, but until a certain point in the narrative, and then of course the ending. It actually is very interesting, but then you have to do some trials. Like I'm just gonna say that you're gonna do trials, you're gonna do puzzles in the middle of the game, and that takes out a lot of the interesting narrative. Then we have Metro Exodus. Metro Exodus is again, like I mentioned with the whole best gameplay thing up top. It's just a great narrative. It's kind of the whole point of the game is the narrative and the storytelling. It's also based on a novel, so of course the storytelling in it is going to be awesome. Then we have Cold War, which has a decent story, but the game is not really evolving your character specifically. It's going to be hard to explain this without spoiling anything, but the story is interesting, but it's not necessarily good. It takes you to interesting places, but the overall story is kind of set in a mission-based form where you kind of think something that's not the case, and then you're kind of trying to it's so hard, but you're trying to I don't know, like trying to uncover some great blood. You can say that damages all of capitalism, and you kind of try to stop that. And then there's some bumps along the way, and it's like, okay, that's then you have the big enemy, then you have some interesting situations happening, but that's also the extent of it, you know. And of course we have Astrologaster, which is a story-oriented game. So of course I'm gonna have that in the narrative thingy. Although the narrative you kind of control, sort of, with the characters you talk to. With the narrative of the game, you kind of talk to people, and then you're a doctor, and then you try to fix their problems. That's pretty much the narrative, but you're not actually a doctor, you're actually an astronomy person, and you doctor based on the stars, so you do things wrong or you get them right. So from a narrative perspective, there are 2 candidates for this and the nominees that I actually think are proper, like very, very decent games for the whole narrative. And that's Metro Exodus and Astrologaster. Now, if you only look at narrative, Metro Exodus has a very overarching narrative. Like its narrative is pretty much world changing when it comes to the Metro world. Because I mean, I might as well just say it because it's based on an earlier game. So you try to figure out if there are other humans outside of Moscow in the game. Because you heard a radio signal in one of the other games. That's kind of your whole thing. You're trying to figure out if there are other people outside of Moscow. See if humanity is still alive, pretty much. And again, I already explained what it is with Astrologaster. So when it comes to these 2 narratives, which one do I prefer? I mean, I do prefer Metro Exodus myself, of course. But Astrologaster, depending on if you're looking for, I guess, something that you can change in the narrative, it might actually beat Metro Exodus because you control the narrative to a certain aspect in Astrologaster. So what about best shooter then? What would I consider the best shooter that I've played? I mean, we have Cold War, which feels very good with shooting. It has a decent story, and overall, it's kind of interesting how it also kind of incorporates a little bit of RPG into it. Like RPG elements, I mean. And then we have the tactical realistic shooter, which I've already spoken about before, where it just tries to be realistic how you tackle like terrorist situations, or hostage situations, or bomb situations, and stuff like that. And Wolfenstein 2 with the very satisfying combat. Borderlands 3, which is a loot-based shooter. And then we have Sniper Elite 5, which kind of it uses sniping gameplay to its extent. Like, it is mainly sniping gameplay, and then of course you can shoot with other guns too. But like, it kind of has the whole shoot an enemy in a body part situation, then you get an X-ray of it. And that's kind of what makes this game different. All of these games excel at something different in the shooting genre. And playing every single one of them feels completely different than playing any other one. But because I'm a pretty casual person, I am gonna have to nominate this to Call of Duty Cold War. Like, it's very hard to beat a company that makes shooting games all the time and then make the shooting beat the feel of their shooting, and then of course they make a decent story with it too. The other games also have decent stories, don't get me wrong, but the whole package in Cold War is exactly what you want in a shooter game, for the most part. And now we are at the indie games, best indie game that I played this year. I don't actually play a lot of indie games, so I'm actually surprised I even have played this many of them. So when it comes to indie games, I mean, we have Ambassador. I'm going to give a short description of them. Ambassador, where you are a hand trying to be an ambassador for the ants. Kind of the humans and the ants need to work together. And some stuff happens, and some ridiculous stuff happens, and then some other ridiculous stuff happens, and then the end of the game. But super great and funny game, I'd say. Impression, which you can't see, it's just a ratio, but it's Impression, is a game about aliens coming to Earth, and then you can kind of control how the masses see the aliens, whether they're hostile or whether they're happy. Also very well made, free game. All of these free, by the way. All of these games are free. The indie games, yeah. So you can feel free to try them yourself if you really want to. Then you have After Hours. It's a horror game about going into a hospital after hours and then getting chased around by someone. I'm not going to say what because that's spoiler territory, but you go to a hospital and you get chased around. You have to escape the hospital. And then you have Dr. Carlos's personality exam, which is just you answering questions, and then he determines what kind of personality you have in the end. Pretty straight up indie game. And then 5 Minute Climb, which is a climb where you have 5 minutes to climb a lot of difficult-ish platforming. So yeah, that's fun. Never beat the game, but I did not have time to play through this game because I kept falling down and you start over again and stuff like that. So because of that, I will actually put this down here. Like, I did not like restarting all the time. Well, it was okay and difficult. It was just not fun getting all your progress reset all the time. Dr. Carlos' personality exam doesn't have a lot of gameplay in it. It's more just answering questions. After Hours has gameplay, but it's like very samey and it gets a bit boring after a little while. Although it looks like a good indie game. And then we start with Ambassador and Impressions. So which one of these two will I pick? Well, Impressions is text-based. It doesn't really have that much gameplay. Ambassador is more gameplay oriented. It's pretty much all about gameplay, and then of course it has like a little environmental storytelling with the ants and stuff. And establishes some cool lore, so I'm actually gonna give it to the Ambassador. Impressions has a cool story. If it was all up to a story between these two, I'll probably give it to Impression. Because it is relevant, it's very relevant. Like, if aliens exist, what would humanity do? How would you treat them? How would you welcome them? Would you be hostile, or would you be friendly towards them? That's what this game is trying to answer, and it's a very huge question that kind of portrays into real life. If aliens ever came to Earth, depending on if you believe aliens or not, of course. I'm not going to say whether or not I do, because I don't want it to influence anyone's decisions in the matter. But what would you do if they did come to Earth, and if they did exist? It's an interesting big question. Now we are down at horror games. What horror games would I like to nominate? Well, I have already nominated, but which one do I think is the overall great horror game that I played thus far? So this one is more gross horror. It's not really scary. It's more like disgusting horror, if that makes sense. And then we have 13 Candles, which is a horror as well, but it's a very buggy horror game. Then you have After Hours, which again is the horror game I spoke about earlier up top in indie section. Then we have Stalker, Shadow of Chernobyl, and Aliens Predators, or versus Predator. And Stalker, while it has horror elements, and I did put it in the horror category, it is not really a horror game. It is maybe I should just pick 3 games in all honesty in these categories to make it a bit easier for everyone, but it's a pretty decent game, but it's not really scary. And you have Aliens versus Predator. I'm also gonna put that down. It's more of a shooter than an actual horror game, but you do feel scared as human in the game. After Hours again gets pretty repetitive, pretty fast. I felt scared for half the game, and then the other half I was just a bit confused and lost. And then 13 Candles. Actually, now that I think about it, no, I'm gonna put this one up here. None of these two are really scary. Like best horror game. This is not a scary game. It's just a disgusting game. And then 13 Candles, not also. I mean, it was scary in the beginning, but then it turned not scary. So yeah. So after I was going to win the best horror game. I don't know. I also don't play a lot of horror games. That's why the indie game turned out to win this one. The free indie game, might I add. Now we're also down at the best RPG. So the best RPG I played would probably be... Ooh, which one of these would it be? I mean, actually I already know which one. So I have Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl, which is not technically an RPG. It doesn't have that many RPG elements, but you are your character. Technically you're not your character, but you are also your character. The excuse for that is that he lost his memory. So you play as the guy when he lost his memory, and then you work your way in, you loot things, you shoot people, you go through the main story. It's a pretty cool game. Like, I really enjoyed it. It's pretty old though. It also looks very old. So it kind of has its issues there. It's not the best RPG game, and it has cool RPG elements, but overall I would actually say it's a bit weaker in the RPG genre than any of these guys are. That being said, Metro Exodus, also pretty weak in the RPG genre. You are playing as another character, not necessarily a character you create, so I will also go ahead and put this down here. So we have these 3 left: Dark Souls 3, Fallout 4, and Cold War. Call of Duty Cold War has RPG elements. Ultimately, the RPG elements are almost non-existing, so I will also put these down here. Although you do have choices in the game, but I don't think they really matter too much. I mean, you have one choice in the end of the game that kind of matters a whole lot, but then besides that, it's like, it's not really that important. So best RPG, Fallout 4 or Dark Souls 3? I'm gonna have to give it to Fallout 4. Dark Souls 3, while it's an RPG, it lacks what I love about RPGs, and that is the freedom to loot and go and do whatever you want. If you get what I mean. Dark Souls 3 has you limited to how you play the game, when Fallout 4 lets you play in whatever way you want. Now, is this the best RPG of the Fallout games? No. But does it beat Dark Souls 3 and all other games I played this year? Yes, it does. Alright, so best art direction. This is gonna be a tough one. You have Devil May Cry 5 with a lot of cool art. Like, it looks very awesome. It has a cool aesthetic. It looks like kind of cartoonish, but like with a realistic thing to it. Like, it's very hard to explain. It's Japanese. Like, they're very good at that. Then you have Assassin's Creed Origins, which looks like semi-realistic and which has the art direction of how ancient Egypt is supposed to look like. Then you have the grotesqueness of Scorn. Then you have the cool cartoonness of Borderlands 3. And you have the cool, I think, cel-shaded-ish cool art direction of Aragami 2. Which I will just say, by the way, Aragami 2's art direction is also pretty cool. So immediately I'm going to get rid of Devil May Cry 5. Like, all of them have good art direction. This has to be the toughest, in my opinion, of all of them. Because all of them, in my opinion, actually has pretty decent art direction. Even the games I didn't list have pretty good art direction. But I will give it to Scorn. Because Scorn in itself is a body horror game, right? Isn't that what it's called when it's like very disgusting? And if there's one thing I think Scorn is good at, because it's pretty much bad at everything else, I'm sorry Scorn, but it's true, is that you are very, very, very disgusted in the game, and everything feels very unsettling. And that is like the art direction doing that. It's not because of what happens in the game, except there's certain things that happens that are also pretty disgusting. But every single time you look around, you feel disgusted. You feel like, what is this? Am I inside something? Or is something inside me? And you just feel so disgusted. And I have to say that the art direction in the game is just so good. That's like the strongest point about Scorn. And that's why I'm saying everything else about it is also pretty weak. Although the story is also okay. If you can understand it, that is. So, best action game, Devil May Cry 5 has a lot of cool action in it. That's pretty much the whole point of the game. That's the strongest point about the game. Hogwarts Legacy, it has puzzle action, if that makes sense. Like, it's kind of puzzle-based combat, color-based and stuff like that. But it's not a great action game. Its gameplay is fun, but it's more like puzzle-oriented than anything else. Action gameplay, Cold War is all about shooting. There's not really too much depth to it as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this over here. When it comes to action game as well, down here, Dark Souls 3 and Wolfenstein 2, both of these. Wolfenstein 2 is just satisfying combat, so I'm also not gonna say that's best action game. Dark Souls 3 is not really too much action. It's more about building your character up and defeating bosses. And when you do fight bosses, there's a lot of action going on. You're rolling around, you're defeating the boss. But it doesn't have an emphasis on action like Devil May Cry 5 does. Like, Devil May Cry 5 is pure action. Like, that is the game. that is like Scorn with its art direction. Game action is literally Devil May Cry's like 5's thing. So it's going to be very hard to beat. So the best family game, you know, there's nothing like family friendliness, am I right? So I thought, if you want to play a game with your family, which one of these should be nominated as the best game to do so? And some of them are a bit questionable, like Ultimate Chicken Horse, where you can scream and hit your family. And of course, we have 2 Lego games too. The Lego games are usually very good to play with family. So which one would I ultimately recommend? Well, let's get rid of Ultimate Chicken Horse, because I think that's a bit too, like, if you play with a kid as an example, they're going to get too upset. If you're 2 adults playing, you're only going to scream swear words at each other. No one is going to hit anyone or get too upset, so there's that. Best family friendliness. Now, I will not have Lego Ninjago on here, because Lego Ninjago is super boring. If you're an adult and you play it, I don't think you will enjoy it. Although you might, but it's just super boring of a Lego game, so I would not recommend it to anyone. Lego Harry Potter, on the other hand, is pretty interesting and pretty fun. Same with Overcooked 2 and, of course, Power Wash. Now, if you are playing with all of your family and kids, right, you should not play Overcooked 2 as well, because Overcooked 2 requires a lot of puzzle solving. Like, it is a puzzle slash, like, a chill family game. Like, you need to overcome challenges. It's hard to explain what Overcooked 2 is. Like, ultimately, it is a light-hearted puzzle deliver food game with where you can, like, complete challenges optionally, sort of. Unless you want the next level, of course. Where you can just enjoy making food and being a little bit stressed out about it. So you have to hurry and feel like you accomplish it. But on the other hand, it's a super difficult, pretty hard game where you have to unlock levels based on your performance in the levels. So if you mess up and you have a kid that doesn't really work properly in the game, doesn't know what to do, you can either get frustrated by the kid, or the kid is gonna get sad or confused because they know what to do, but it's so hard to do it on the time limit, and they don't understand what it means to be in a restaurant. So I think Overcooked 2 will cause too much conflict to be the best family game on the list here. So we have Power Wash Simulator, and then we have Harry Potter. Lego Harry Potter, yes, 1 to 4. Haven't played 4 to 7? 5 to 7? I think it's 5 to 7 yet. Have to play that at some point too. So yeah, so Power Wash Simulator is pretty chill. I don't know if you could ever get a kid to play it for a long time though, because nothing really happens in the game. It's literally just washing things, and while a kid can enjoy it and the game is co-op, it just is not interesting gameplay. So the attention span would just not function properly. Like it would just not be there. So we have Lego Harry Potter years 1 to 4 on this one. Lego games in general are pretty great games to play with family. While it is only 2-player, you can swap controller as well whenever you die or whenever the level changes. So if you're more than 2 people, you can still enjoy it and have fun. That being said, if you prefer everyone playing, then I would recommend Power Wash Simulator. But not if you have kids. Then I would just recommend one of the other games, I'd say. I should probably have put a Lego Movie on there instead of Lego Ninjago. I don't know why I didn't do that, because I also have it. I also played it this year, so yeah. In any case, Lego Ninjago, Lego Harry Potter, technically both of them are pretty decent and fun. The best strategy sim game. Well, either or, not both, technically. And oh boy, do we have some contenders here. We have 2 Total War games that I played. Technically, I played quest battles in Total War Warhammer 3, and I played historical battles in Shogun 2. Both are very interesting and very fun in that regard. But I'm gonna have to, if I have to pick between one of them, because they're pretty much the same for the most part, it would be Warhammer 3, because there are more levels, and they're ultimately, most of the levels are fun. They have some very bad levels, by the way, some very hard ones. But ultimately, I would have to give it to Total War Warhammer 3, because historical battles in Shogun 2, while they're fun, they're not as epic and as grand scale as the ones in Warhammer 3. But then, what do you value here? Because that's kind of what matters now. Because Iron Harvest is a real-time strategy game, and it's a fun real-time strategy game as well. So what would I give this game when it comes to this? Like, it's a pretty tough real-time strategy game. It's ultimately fun, and I think it deserves to be nominated. But I would probably not have it be up here. Okay, so Surgeon Simulator 2 and Power Wash Simulator. Do any of them kind of stack up against each other? Well, I would say Power Wash Simulator is a time waste game. Surgeon Simulator 2 is more of a story game, because I don't really care too much about time waste games. While they are enjoyable and you can spend a lot of time doing it to feel satisfied, you don't really accomplish anything at the end of the game. Technically you do, but I'm not going to spoil that for you. It's just that you have to do the same thing over and over and over again, and upgrade and do the same thing over and over again to get to the end of the game where something actually happens. And there's a little story on the side, so that's nice and all, but ultimately, nah. And which one of these 2 games did I enjoy the most? Well, Surgeon Simulator 2 is a co-op game, so I had fun with my friends, but I would probably never play it solo. Not really made for that. So that leaves us with Total War Warhammer 3, specifically quest battles. But I also played the overall game, and I would also recommend that one to everyone who enjoys strategy games. So there's that. Now, best gameplay. Ooh, this is going to be a fun one. So when it comes to best gameplay, what do I value? Well, I value fun combat, freedom in the way I approach situations in games, and preferably an open world, or some kind of world where I don't get put out of the moment behind a cutscene or loading screens for that matter. So immediately Cold War is out. I would say Borderlands 3 sort of passes, I guess. Metro Exodus is out. While I do enjoy the gameplay a lot in it, it's just not really there. And then we have Wolfenstein 2 is also out. Then we have Fallout 4 and Borderlands 3. So Fallout 4 is a loot-based shooter where you shoot an enemy, you can loot their corpse, and you can run around, do whatever you want without a cutscene. There's no overall technical story. Like, you have an overall story, but you're not forced to follow the story. Borderlands 3 limits you. You have a story to follow. You can go to different planets, and the further along you get in the story, the more planets you unlock. And you unlock new weapons and stuff like that. But ultimately, I think Fallout 4's gameplay has it beat by a long shot. So I'll go ahead and remove this. Now, the weakest point about Fallout 4 is its shooting. Like, it doesn't feel revolutionary. It feels kind of a bit old school, but it doesn't feel too horrible. So, depending on who you are as a person, if you value shooting over everything else, then I think Call of Duty might actually win. But if you value satisfying combat, then Wolfenstein 2 probably wins. But if you value freedom and being able to play the game the way you want to play it, you'll probably pick either an RPG in general, or you would probably pick, I don't know, an open world game. So I'm going to pick Fallout 4. This is my personal view of this. Best gameplay for me is how I can approach it with an open mindset and usually get the result that I expected to get when I approach the situation. So best puzzle game then. We have Overcooked 2. We have Overcooked 1. Then we have Scorn, Tomb Raider, and Hogwarts Legacy. Now, Tomb Raider and Hogwarts Legacy are semi-puzzle games because they have puzzle elements in them. Hogwarts Legacy a bit more than Tomb Raider, I think. Tomb Raider has specific puzzles you need to solve, but it's not built completely around puzzles. It's pretty much combat and puzzles. Hogwarts Legacy is pretty much puzzle in the fact that it is combat that is the puzzle as well. So when it comes to Hogwarts Legacy, I would say that you see, the puzzles in Scorn, I know for a fact, are like they're not very good at telling you what you need to do to solve them. So I'm gonna put them down there. I had trouble with puzzles in Scorn, by the way. I would argue that Overcooked 1 is way too hard. So I would also put that away. Not because the puzzles are hard, but because the limit you need to go to continue in the game is hard. If that makes sense. So that's left with Overcooked 2 and Hogwarts Legacy. Now, I do think Overcooked 2 has Hogwarts Legacy beat in the way it tackles making food and the puzzles it gives you. Because it improved itself from Overcooked 1, which was way too hard, and kind of added more elements to it and more interesting situations to the game. And it does that by just making you make different kinds of food and work with your co-op partners, if that's the case. Or you could take over multiple people as alone or whatever you say. So I think it's it's a great puzzle game. You really have to think when you play Overcooked. You wouldn't think that, because it's like it's pretty much just a make food game, but like it's very tough, by the way. Like, trust me when I say that it's the hardest puzzle game. The first Overcooked is probably the hardest puzzle game I've played in my entire life, just because of the requirements to proceed to the next level. It was frustrating. But the second game is not frustrating. It's pretty chill. It's better than the first one. I would recommend the second one. So funniest game. Ooh. Alright, so we have Lego Movie Video Game, Ambassador, Surgeon Simulator 2, Power Wash Simulator, and of course Ultimate Chicken Horse. Now, for Ultimate Chicken Horse depends entirely on the people playing, so there's a chance you could fight someone, so I'm not gonna use that as the funniest game in general. Power Wash Simulator, while it is funny, it has a funny story, by the way, and it has funny quirky little things, and you clean up for funny reasons. It's not overall a funny game, it's a satisfying game. For people, not for me though. So while I did nominate it, it's not the best thing I have ever played. Or the funniest thing I've ever played. So funniest game, Surgeon Simulator 2 is pretty funny. Lego Movie, while it is funny, it is also not hilarious. Like, it's not as fun as you would think. So that leaves Ambassador and Surgeon Simulator 2. Now, Ambassador is more or less a joke game. Like, the whole game is based around joking. Not choking with the CH, but like joking. So it's more of a big joke or a joke than anything else. So I would say that Surgeon Simulator 2 wins just because Ambassador is like 10 minutes long, 20 minutes long, depending on how bad you are controlling the hand. Again, a free game, but I highly recommend you try this game. It's a pretty fun game. So hardest game. You might be thinking I'm gonna pick Dark Souls 3, but no, I'm actually not gonna pick Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3, in my opinion, is still not a hard game. It's just hard to master. Like, it's hard to understand all the mechanics fully, but when you get the hang of them, the game is super easy. Like, it's not even that tough. Like, pick a two-handed weapon, learn how to dodge while rolling, and you can go through the whole game no problem, pretty much. Like, it's not that hard. You will still probably die, but like, depending on how you play, you can also summon people. Like, the game itself is only hard if you try to make it hard for yourself. Otherwise, it's super easy. So that goes down there. Iron Harvest. I think that was mostly hard for me because I was playing with Hero. Because she made everything so difficult. She's the kind of person that rushes in without thinking and then gets herself killed. And that was very hard to manage while playing the game, so I think it could be pretty easy if you just played right. 0 Hour, 5-minute climb, and Overcooked are the last three here. So 5-minute climb. 5-minute climb is... Ooh, how do I put this? It's annoying, but you can probably do it if you waste enough time doing it, so I wouldn't call it hard. It's just because you start from the beginning all the time that makes it annoying. Hardest game is either 0 Hour or Overcooked then. And I'm actually going to go ahead and make Overcooked 1 the hardest game I've played this year. Yes, the hardest flipping game. And that's only because Overcooked is what I would refer to as a high requirement puzzle game. And what I mean by that is that the requirement to go to the next level after the next level is to get a lot of stars. And you cannot get those, you cannot go to the next level and finish the game unless you get those stars. So you're forced to go back in other levels to get better results, but that's super hard because the time limit is awful and it makes everything so hard to complete. So ultimately Overcooked is the hardest game because the requirement for the next levels are ridiculous, and it makes you so frustrated when you waste 5 minutes and you still don't get the result. And you waste 5 more minutes and then you still don't get the result. And then on the 5th try or the 4th try, you finally get the stars you want. Then you realize, what, I can only get 3 stars at once? Not more? So sad. and that's just the whole circle with the game. You have to go through other levels again, and then you have the harder levels that gives you less stars and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a tough game. It's just tough. Easiest game. Alright, so either it's Click to 10 for me, or it is probably Coloring Game. A Coloring Game takes a long time, so I'll probably put that down. Click to 10, just... I mean, I'm probably going to give it to that one. What Dr. Carlos's personality test is just you pick choices, and that's the game. Then you get the result. Power Wash Simulator, you just wash things, but again, it takes a long time, so you don't really finish the game pretty fast. Impression, you make choices, things happen, but ultimately it is not as easy as clicking 10 times on the application and then the game closes and you win. And in case you're wondering, that is exactly what Click to 10 is. You just click 10 times in the application and you win. And by win, I mean the application closes and that's that. That's you done with the game. Just click 10 times. Very fun. Very fun. I don't actually think I released this Let's Play yet. It was so long ago. I just don't know what to make as a thumbnail for it. It's literally just a gray screen with like text saying click to 10. So I don't know if I released it or not. So now we're at the most sad out of all of my little topics yet. So the buggiest game. While Assassin's Creed Origins was buggy, I did have a couple times where I fell and died by getting stuck in a tree. I think I was bugged in combat. Some colliders are also pretty off. Some weird game mechanics kind of threw me off. So that was ultimately not the hardest one though. Fallout 4, super buggy. So I'm going to keep that one there for now. 7 Years War, it's an indie game. It is pretty buggy in the way that the gameplay is handled, but overall it doesn't have a lot of bugs because it's like an indie game and they didn't really intend to not give it the other gameplay mechanics it's lacking. But I do have cool mechanics in it, but the problem is just that everything feels so stiff and unfinished. Hogwarts Legacy I'm also going to keep for now because I want to talk about Unity. But Hogwarts Legacy, I had trouble playing through the whole game. It was stuttering all the time. As soon as I played for 30 minutes, I started lagging, and the only way to stop it was to restart the game. So we have Unity here. Unity, while it was buggy on launch, when I played it, I don't really encounter a lot of bugs. I think I encountered like seeing textures overlap on rooftops all over the place. And I had trouble with the whole climbing system that they introduced by like holding down B, you climb down a building, and usually it didn't want to climb properly, and then you get stuck out a window, and you know, then you're just stuck there, and you have to fall down, and then when you fall down, you take damage. Like the climbing system of that game was a bit buggy for me, and not really that fun. But ultimately, it's not as buggy right now when I played it this year as these two games. Now, which one of these two games is the buggiest? Well, if you're gonna go with the actual bugginess of the game, how many bugs it has, then Fallout 4 will probably win here. Because I think Fallout 4 has way more bugs than Hogwarts Legacy does. But I'm gonna give the victory to Hogwarts Legacy here. Congratulations, Hogwarts Legacy, you get the buggiest game award. Yes. My experience of Hogwarts Legacy is very negative. If you watch my Let's Play, you know why. Because I played through the whole game, having a lot of fun, and then all of a sudden, every single video, if I did not restart the game after recording one video, it started lagging, and sometimes you just simply forget, right? And then in the middle of the recording, I either have to pause it, I have to finish the recording, and I start lagging like crazy, and the stuttering happens, and it's just unplayable for the most part. And it was just not fun. It was simply not fun, because, not to mention the performance issues inside and outside of Hogwarts and Hogsmeade, you just could not play the game like that, especially with the lagginess I got. And the worst part about it is, I have someone with the exact same hardware except a different CPU, but my CPU is technically more modern and better. And he actually didn't have the same issues as me, where you started stuttering, and you might think, oh, it's a VRAM issue. My VRAM was fine. I checked my VRAM. I don't know what caused it, and he doesn't know what caused it. He's playing fine. I have a friend, again, Hero. I'm talking about Hero and Hugo, by the way, if you don't know. Hugo could play it fine. Hero had worse problems than me. She had a worse graphics card, of course, but she could barely take 5 steps without the game going, like, completely freezes and then starts up again and then freezes again. Like, it was so inconsistent that it just, like, kind of makes no sense. So I'm gonna give the buggiest game to Hogwarts Legacy, because while it has lesser bugs than Fallout 4 does, the bugs in Hogwarts Legacy almost makes the game unplayable. If you encounter them, that is. Based on everyone else I've seen, they seem to have had a better experience, so good for them. But my experience was very negative and very buggy. Both some visual bugs and then, of course, the whole performance bugs that I had. So, yeah, these are my games of the year. For me, anyway. Games are played this year, just so no one gets confused. So, best game played goes to Metro Exodus. Congratulations, Metro Exodus. Woo! Best co-op game goes to Borderlands 3. Congratulations, Borderlands 3 with a weak story, but everything else pretty fun. Best music goes to Dark Souls 3. Woo! Yeah! Best audio design goes to 0 Hour. Yes, congratulations, 0 Hour. You really had some great audio design. Best narrative goes to Metro Exodus again, because I really enjoyed Metro Exodus' narrative. Best shooter goes to Cold War, because the shooting in that game feels very awesome, feels punchy, feels strong. While it doesn't feel as good as Wolfenstein Design 2, the mechanics in this one were a bit better, because they were a bit more straightforward, in my opinion. They weren't as complicated, but it was still very satisfying, and the mission-based shooting also makes it a bit more fun when Wolfenstein 2 has these weird armored enemies, and they kind of make the combat a bit different all the time, and sometimes we just want something simple, because this is what I want. A simple shooter where you can shoot enemies, and you don't need to worry about like your health too much. Then Cold War is perfect for that. It's a pretty simple shooter, that's why it's here, and it's a satisfying simple shooter. Best indie game goes to Ambassador. because it's a pretty short story, like 10 minutes long. You have fun. You go through the whole thing you're playing as a hand. It's a whole unique experience too. Best horror game goes to After Hours. Because of course it's one of the only horror games I played, and it has a person chasing you, so that's fun. Best RPG goes to Fallout 4 because of how it approaches the RPG genre. It's not an RPG in the sense that you can put stats everywhere, although you have an upgrade system. It's an RPG in the sense that you can roleplay as whatever you want, as long as you're always a dad. So, take with that what you want. Or, well, a dad looking for his son. So best art direction goes to Scorn, which is, again, the only thing they're really good at. But, again, that is very deserved. Very cool art direction. It's probably the coolest thing about the game. Best action game goes to Devil May Cry 5, because that is literally what the game is. It is an action game. I guess that's all it is. And you cannot beat the action they got going there, because it's so epic and so awesome. Best family game goes to Harry Potter Years, Lego Harry Potter Years 1 to 4. Pretty fun Lego game. One of my favorite Lego games thus far. Best strategy slash sim game goes to Total War Warhammer 3. Because it's fun, it requires some strategy, it's ultimately on a bigger scale than the other Total War game was. Best gameplay goes to Fallout 4 because of how it approaches gameplay. It allows you to play the way you want for the most part. And that is why it gets it from the games played this year. Of course, this would not be my pick for games of all time. That needs to be stated. My whole list would be different if it is games I have played throughout my whole life, not just games I have played this year. So, okay, keep that in mind. Best puzzle game goes to Overcooked 2. Because Overcooked 2 was fun, but not too hard. But also you had to think a lot. Funniest game goes to Surgeon Simulator 2, because you're just random people who are now playing surgeons, and yeah, you mess around with your friends, and it's just fun. It's very funny. The whole situation is kind of funny in that game. Also how it approaches like gore and stuff is also kind of funny, but let's not talk about that too much, because YouTube doesn't like this stuff. So hardest game is Overcooked that I played this year. The hardest game. Yes, it's a 2D, no, not 2D, 3D sort of top-down co-op game where you cook food. The hardest game I played this year. Play it yourself and you'll know why. Easiest game is Click to Den, because you click 10 times on the screen and that's the game. Buggiest game is Hogwarts Legacy, because it was barely playable for me after I played it for 30 to 40 minutes. So yeah, those are my picks. Let me know what you guys would have changed, what you guys would have added in the comment section. I'm always open to what you guys think, whether or not you actually enjoyed one of my Let's Plays more than the other one, whether or not you enjoyed the game more than the other one when you played it yourself. What is your view? What would you have put in these different spots? What would you be your actual game of the year of all time if you really wanted it? I'm all up for hearing those kind of things. But for now, I'm going to have to end this video here, and I can of course answer and read your comments after the video goes out, which of course I will do. I just will read your comments. I always enjoy reading comments, you know, the few I get. So, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this video and my year rankings, I guess you can say, of the Let's Plays I've done and the games I've played through this year. On screen, that is. There are some games I played off screen that I've played before in the past, but I kind of wanted this to stay inclusive only to my channel. You know, kind of wall off all the other games that I have not played on the channel yet. But let me know if you guys really just want games I played throughout the whole year, or if this is good enough or whatever it is. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Hope to see you in another one of my Let's Plays. Again, whichever one of these you want to watch, or any of the newer ones I'm going to have coming out, would gladly see you there. Hope to see you there, of course. Hope you consider at least checking them out. And yeah, you guys stay awesome, and see you in another one of those Let's Plays, hopefully.